Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our seminar today. It's the first time NESBiP and NESCAN have worked together on a seminar. I hope you like what we've got this morning. And it's all about supporting local biodiversity using to use the Climate Adaptation Route Map. So, first speaker is Roger Owen, who's chair of the Biodiversity Partnership. So I'd like to welcome Roger up to the front. Thanks.
Just whip it down. You got it.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to look at a few faces to check that works. All right. And so it's great to see. What?
Try again.
Hi, everybody.
There we go.
Yeah, it's great to see so many people here. Really interesting. What an interesting seminar this is going to be. I know that's why you're all here, but it's a packed agenda. But this is all about biodiversity and what we can all do, but it's also about how a lot of our biodiversity projects are vital for climate change adaptation too. Alison's going to explain more about the route map just after me. But first of all, I just want to mention some really important things. So first of all, you need to know that the toilets are left off the reception area. That way. The fire exit is to the right of us. The cafe is in use, so we may hear some background noise. You can use the cafe, by the way, if you want to buy stuff. There's going to be photos taken throughout. So, I mean, you can always pull your HUD down or whatever if you really don't want to be in a photograph. But there will be photos taken. And the presentations, all the presentations have been recorded because people are going to want to see these later. So if that's all okay with you, I'll just explain. I just want to say a little bit about NESBiP. But I want to say something about the importance of the northeast of Scotland too for biodiversity. You know as well as I do that the northeast of Scotland has got this huge diversity of habitats. Everything from Arctic alpine right through to the lochs, rivers, pinewoods, pastures, deciduous woodlands, peatlands, and also, of course, urban arable land and the coastal environment. And of course, that itself creates a massive opportunity for biodiversity. And we have this, just to illustrate it, this is the Cairngorm National Park. All of those iconic species there, right? You know all about the importance of the national park for that. A lot of people forget about soil biodiversity, by the way. And also, this is my speciality, is the aquatic insects that live in riverbeds. People forget about those too. But anyway, this is the amazing biodiversity we have on our doorstep. Did you know? Oh, and by the way, there are rivers that are designated for things like otter, for pearl mussels and salmon. We have those rivers too on our doorstep. But did you know that 25% of the UK's rare and threatened species are there in the national park? That is you got to think about that. And just did you know that? Now this is probably arguable. However, there are something like 90,000 species in Scotland. There are something like 24,000 invertebrate species, 535 bird species, 60 mammals, and 10 reptiles. There are about 2,000 flowering plants. There are about 60,000 bacteria, fungi, and so on. This is an important point that there are so many species around in Scotland because the trends in biodiversity in Scotland, as you know well, you know all this, but you'll know the threats to biodiversity that there are, and that we know that there are something like 15% of our wildlife has decreased since 1994, and that nearly half of our flowering plants have decreased in their distribution, and that 11% of Scottish species are threatened with extinction. Well, my calculation tells you that means that there's something like, which is why I came up with that previous 90,000. And this is another thing that you can argue with me about, but roughly speaking, we're talking about a lot of species in Scotland that are under threat. So, that's what we're here for. So, but it's also important to realise that we are thinking about this, government thinks about this a lot, and the biodiversity strategy tackling the nature emergency is out there right now, the consultation. We know that declining biodiversity will exacerbate the climate crisis, and changing climate will accelerate biodiversity loss. These two things are inextricably intertwined. Restoring nature, of course, reduces carbon emissions, tackles the climate crisis, and government policy says we must be both net zero and nature positive, which we all agree with, obviously. And the framework for statutory targets is in the frame right now. A lot of us are thinking, God, how are they going to do that? What does that mean? But still, it's there. It's something we have to work with them on. Who are NESBiP? The North East Scotland Biodiversity Partnership. It's a partnership that's actually 29 years old, nearly 30 years old now. It's one of the first. There were 4 pilots set up by government for local biodiversity action plans. And NESBiP were one of the first, and we're still there, and we're still doing a lot of really great work. It's clearly in order to deliver biodiversity at the local level. That's what we're about. That's why we're working together across the North East for nature. Did I miss something there? No. The North East Scotland Partnership area is this. It includes Aberdeen City, Aberdeenshire, Moray Shire. That is our area of operation. Did you realise that that's about 9% of Scotland's population and about 8% of Scotland's land area? So it's an important, significant part of Scotland. And what do? We work in collaboration. That's vital for us. We work in collaboration with lots of other organisations. We provide advice on biodiversity. We support projects. We really want to support action rather than talk. We raise awareness a lot of the decline of biodiversity. We provide a regional forum for exchange of information. We workshops, events like these. We provide information on biodiversity for developers because they have to understand and they need to know what it is that they have to deal with and what they should do and what they can do to mitigate when they're developing. So we can provide that, and we can signpost communities to other organisations too. So that's how we do it. We have something like 45 partners, something like that, and we have funders. That's kind of like on the bottom. The 3 local authorities: Aberdeen City, Aberdeenshire, Morayshire. We have Scottish Forestry, Ithaca Energy. James Hutton Institute provides the sort of management and the facility and everything for NESBiP. So that's a lot of people that are interested and work with us as NESBiP. So we come to the workshop itself, and there are an amazing number of talks on all kinds of topics. We will have 4 sessions, and there will be coffee breaks. 15-minute coffee break means you'll be zoom back, sort of. And then we've got a lunch where, please, when you're at lunch, people have brought stuff for you to see. There's some really interesting things that people have brought, and you should take the opportunity to have a look at them. And so now I'm going to hand back to Robin, who's going to chair the morning session, and I hope you have a great time.
Thanks, Roger. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Robin Pakeman, and I work for the James Hutton Institute, and for my sins, I'm Abby's line manager. Anyway, our next speaker is Alison Stuart from NESCAN, and she's going to tell us about the introduction to the Climate Change Route Map. Thank you, Alison.
Thanks, Robin, and hi, everybody. I'm Alison, as Robin said, and I'm from NESCAN Hub. So, welcome from NESCAN Hub. It's great to be in partnership with NESBiP. So those of you that don't know who we are, and you should by now, but if you don't, we are a regional community climate hub. So what that means is that we're here to help communities with climate action here in the North East of Scotland. So we cover Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire, And Moray Hub, go, Louise there, they cover Moray. Okay, so Moray people, speak to Louise. So basically our vision though is a sustainable North East Scotland within, I'm going to read it because it's got lots of key words in it, connected, empowered and active communities at its heart. And our aims are to support and develop community climate action on the ground, but also to support communities to be part of a just transition, contributing to decision and policy making, because that is crucial to both have your voices heard, but actually act as well. So what we do, and it's very similar to what Robin was saying, Roger, was saying about NESBiP, is we try to develop community resilience, knowledge, skills and expertise in climate action and biodiversity. And they are very much interconnected, as are mitigation and adaptation. So when we're talking about, and the focus of today's seminar is about adaptation in relation to biodiversity, but so many times we do both mitigation and adaptation together. So what we do in NESCAN is we help give advice, and we can signpost if you've got biodiversity issues. We'll go, hey, NESBiP's really good. See their Facebook page, put a question on there and you get an answer within 5 minutes from about 10, 20 different people. And you will offer to give you lots of plans. So there's that kind of stuff. We provide funding, so we have our seed and leaf funding. It's closed at the moment. It'll come back up after the new financial year starts. So keep an eye out early kind of summer, late spring for our seed funding. It's usually £500 to about £1,000, depending on which time of the year it is and how much we need to get rid of. So alongside the signposting to other organisations, we also map. So we've got a great map on our website of all the different community climate action projects out there. And we enable people to know more about what's going on. So that if you think you go and see a really cool project, you want to know what to do yourself to do that, then you can go and chat to those people. And that's really what it's about, being the network as well, because we've got just under 400 people who are members of NESCAN, and it's a really good way to be able to share knowledge and get that peer support as well. So we have events like this one, we have training, and we have lots of stuff on our website as well, lots of resources. And if there's something there that you can't see and you want, then let us know and we'll try and create one. So I think what's really important is that, and it's very much the heart of what we do, is connection and partnershiping. So we try to work with the existing groups in Aberdeen, City and Shire, and also to help to create those connections between. So we link into the councils as well as different stakeholders and community groups to do that, and ScotGov. So we have lots of consultations out. Roger quite helpfully said about the one that's currently out in relation to biodiversity. There's a community benefits one, which is really quite crucial for communities to get independent income streams. So keep your eye out. There'll be an event if you want to feed into that from towards the end of this month, beginning of next month. There's also one about transport. There's loads of ones out. So if you want to get involved in that sort of thing, then we can help you with that. And really, as particularly with our Just Transition Communities project, we enable communities to vision and then action that vision and enable their voices to be heard in the places of power as well, which is really, really crucial. Because a number of times you want to do something and there's so many barriers, you're like, oh, we can help you to put your thoughts about how to get over those barriers in front of the right people. So what's this talk about? Well, it's about the Community Climate Adaptation Route Map, and it got created, I think about 2 years ago, by Sniffer, that was now Virture, just very, very, very newly rebranded, who also go by the name of Adaptation Scotland. So it's their they were the key partner in this, but ourselves and the Highlands and Islands Hubs, DTAS and SCAN, all combined together to create this beautiful, and it is beautiful, route map. So why is it called a route map? Well, it's because basically you need to know how to get somewhere. You need to plot your route from where you are to where you want to go with a map that enables you to see all the different places that you can go and the routes you can take. And that's what it's all about. It's about this enables you to start where you're at and to get where you're going. Every community is different, and every regional hub is different because of that. So when you're thinking about what projects you want to do, you start at different starting points and you have different variables. So you don't have the same kind of land around you. Some of you might live on the coast, some of you live on, up in the valley, whatever. Some of you have more landowners or farmers, other people are more urban. You've got to go with what you actually have. So this is, and you see here, and we have got some of these, but unfortunately, because of the rebranding, they didn't print as many as we wanted. So we've got a few of these, but you also can get it online. And it's as I say, it is a beautiful piece of art. But there's a kind of generic stuff about getting started, understanding climate change, taking action. Then there's more specific kind of thematical areas so you can go a deep dive into those kind of areas. And then the last bit is about thinking a bit more wider. So I'm going to go through a little bit of it, and it will help you to understand when you want to go and have a look at it in more detail yourselves. So really, we all start at different points. So you might be a lone person in your area thinking, I need to do something about this. I'm fed up with this bit of land flooding, or this, the air pollution, or whatever it is that you want to change within your local area. The first thing to do is somebody else that wants to do that, is already doing that. I'll go and research what groups are around me, join them. If there's not anything, then you can create your own group, your own project. It's a bit tough to do that, but we can help you, along with the TSIs, other people, to create a group. I did that with Aberdeen Climate Action. You start with one, you get a few, and you keep on going until you find some way of really getting the energy in the room. And that's what it's all about. It's going with the energy that you've got in an area for a certain project. If you are a group already, then it's about, well, we want to do this project, but what projects do we want to do? What's really, you're right, Kate, what's really good? What can we really do to understand what the needs and the passion in our community is? Because it's very important to do with as opposed to. So one of the first things to do when thinking about adaptation is to really understand what that means. And there's a lot of kind of words and fancy words and everything. But at the end of the day, all it really means is there's change coming. How are you going to make sure that you are prepared for it, basically? So there's resilience, which is, oh my goodness, it's here, help. How am I going to cope? And there's adaptation, like we're trying to try and make sure that you don't go to that kind of help moment. So both of those things need to be taken into account. So it's really important to know that even if we cut all our emissions now, which obviously is a bit tricky looking at geopolitics at this precise moment in time, there's still the inbuilt changes happening, and we still are experiencing the impacts of climate change right now. I mean, we all know that from the storms and flooding, etc., that we've experienced here in the northeast of Scotland. So what you want to do really is start that conversation going within your communities. And really, it's looking at how your community, how your area is going to be affected. And I'm sure a lot of you have done this already, but this is a really good way of determining how to do it. It's got a lot of different discussion starting points, how you can have discussions. Because a lot of times you say, okay, I want to get everyone around and talk, and you're like, but I'm not really a facilitator, and I don't know what I'm doing, and Well, this is a good way of just going in, having a look at different toolkits and seeing what suits you and your audience. And you can always ask for help, because that's what we're here for. The Regional Community Climate Action Hubs are here to help you, along with other people and places as well. So it's a really lovely, I mean, you can't read all that, but as I say, there are copies. But it's a really nice way of doing things. So quite a lot of what we have done in the past with Aberdeen Climate Action, well, we have done with Aberdeen Climate Action is have conversations. But with NESCAN, what we've been doing is having community conversations about what people want to do in their local area. And at the very heart of it, and what the most important thing to do is to vision, is to say what you want your community to look like. And that is absolutely the very first step. I would always advise doing that, because you know what? It's easier to get people excited about what they've created and work back from that, because all you see is the solutions as opposed to barriers. If you work from the status quo to something, all you see is barriers. So that's the way to go about it, is really to vision first and then help to create the actions to get that vision a reality, basically. So those are some of the ways in which you can have the conversations. But as I say, we can also help with those conversations and giving you some of that help as well. As I said before, it's really important to do with and to. It can be tricky sometimes. You think you know best, but it won't work. I know myself and my kids. If you keep on going, no, and people don't understand why you're doing it, it doesn't come from them, and the solution doesn't come from the group, from the people that you're wanting to do it with, then it's not really going to land very well. So that is a crucial element. So as I said, create a future vision. But then also it's about mapping. One of the very first things to do about when you're actually starting something is to map what's already there and what the issues really are. Because me as a one person, I know some things. The more people get around the table, the more knowledge you have. And that's what's really, really crucial. So there's some of the islands, they actually have a map of all the adaptation sites or things that are kind of worrying or effects of climate change that are already happening. And they're putting it on the map and giving comments. It's a really great way to actually create a really good database of effects. So this is example here, you know, things that are affected now, what the risks are, how is it going to be addressed now, what else could you do to make that better? And by bringing all that together, that's kind of more of a resilience plan. You know, you're looking at resilience going forward. But the adaptation comes in how you're going to prevent. So the next bit is you've done all that planning, you've got the vision, you kind of know what you're dealing with, you've mapped, and now you're like, okay, what do we do about this? And when you're taking action, every single community is going to take action in a slightly different way. You've all got different environments and you've all got different skills and talents within that group. So it's really important to map your skills and your passions as well, and then see if you've got anything missing and try and find it. So what the route map does is it gives you lots of different categories, and then it gives you help in each of those categories to learn more about it, but then also, you know, the support services there that can help you and some of the tactics and information knowledge that you can get as well. So I'm not going to go through it all, but you can see it's there and you can delve in yourselves. But when in this section of taking action, and we're going to come into it, you've got these ones. You've got regenerate nature, which is obviously very, very pivotal for the people in the room here just today. There's improving houses and neighbourhoods, and quite a lot of our NESCAN members, this is one of their passions. Retrofit, huge passion. You know, you can see that also in a lot of communities as well with the community halls. Huge passion, because also it makes a healthier, happier, cheaper home once you give them that initial outlay to actually do that retrofit. Support self-sufficiency. A lot of what we want to do with NESCAN is create communities that have their own income generation, because then you get to really determine what projects you take forward in your local areas. That's why we're trying to do quite a big push on community energy, because we think that's the way ahead in a lot of ways. Getting around, so that's like transport and growing skills and employment. This is what it looks like. And I think it's lovely. I hope you agree. I think it's one of the prettier route maps I've seen. It's not got cars and roads. It's actually nature. And as you can see here, there's all the stuff that you really need as your foundation. And then you have your kind of your, what's that called again? Trunk, thank you. At a certain age, words start falling out of your head. You have trunk, you have the branches, and then you have the leaves. And it's all that kind of scaffolding that's really, really necessary within any sort of project. You need to ensure you have all that in place, the roots and the trunk and the branches before you start with the leaves. And a lot of times we look at the leaves and the flowers and the pretty stuff and we concentrate on that. And if we don't have the right scaffold, then it will die off quite soon. So it's really important to have a solid foundation within the group that you're in. There's a lot of work needs to be done around about that. And your planning before you go on and do. So that's what it looks like. And when you're online, you can then swoop in and go like down into the depths. So each of these has a lot more behind it. So in the regenerate nation section, this is what it looks like. And it has lots of different resources. Obviously, you guys will know a lot more, have a lot more resources than that. But it also has other things about who to go and ask, and more about the knowledge of the climate adaptation and climate mitigation stuff. So it gives you that kind of, hopefully, that real foundation in which to grow. So there's that one, and then improving houses and neighbourhoods also has this stuff as well. And it hopefully enables you to have a more holistic view, because you can see what you're doing, but also what else you could be doing and linking in with others perhaps to create a bigger, more rounded approach. So it's for everybody to a large extent. So it's both local action groups, local committees, community councils, residents groups, community development trusts, anybody who wants to do this kind of project. So it's got so many different layers to it, and I would advise you just to go and have a wee look, a wee play with it. And what we'll do when we send out the information, Francesca, Abby, we'll put a link to the route map on it. Yeah, so you can then be very easily led to it. One of the things to really think about as well, though, when you're doing this kind of project, and it could be on the ground, it's adaptation and it's biodiversity, is also to bring in that extra bit, that kind of thinking about how you really connect in globally, but also socially, and have that climate justice aspect to it as well. So you can really start the conversations with people. Some of the questions here. How can we carry out projects that matter in our community in a way that also addresses social and climate justice? What does that mean for our community? Can you be inclusive? How have you designed your project? Does it really bring everybody in from that community? Have you brought in the youngsters and their views? Have you brought in the refugees that might be, the asylum seekers within your area? Have you brought in those people, like the older people who are sitting in their homes alone? So it's really about how you, at the same time as doing the projects, really think about even more about how you can positively impact on your community as well while doing them. So that's the thing. So it's bringing in that kind of like extra thought, the extra layer to make it even better and more impactful, and to really create that community that you want, you know, the kind of Scotland that we want. If you've any kind of questions, then first I advise you have a look and come back to us. If you want help with developing a adaptation or a climate action, a biodiversity project, then you've got two key organisations here in the room, well, three actually, in the room already. You've got NESBiP for the kind of biodiversity, you know, that nitty-gritty bit, and it is a fantastic network of people who are just really, really up for giving help and advice. You've got NESCAN who can really give you that practical experience and advice and hand-holding as well as Moray. So please do come and speak to us. Well, there's a few of us in the room, so Glenn, Louise, put your hand up, me, Francesca, Anna, Abby, anyone else missing? Come and speak to us if you want to know more. But they're all there. Get in touch. So NESCAN's there, but Virture used to be Sniffer. I know why they chose that name. But anyway, you can speak to them, and they're the experts with adaptation. So you know where we are. Have a think, and here's to 20 million more adaptation projects. Thank you.
Right, so I'm from the East Grampian Coastal Partnership. We cover the area from Kinnaird Head at Fraserburgh down to St Cyrus, and it's our 20th birthday this year, so happy birthday to us. Now what I'm going to be talking about is trying to get knowledge to people so they can then make decisions, the right decisions. I'm going to start off with more sort of general and then go into some specific people we're trying to reach, particularly as regional marine planning comes into the area, which hopefully it will be doing fairly soon. We do the standard things that most sort of community-minded groups do. We do the newsletter. If anybody would like to sign up, give me your email address today and we can put this out. We go out to places and talk to people. So this is one of the sort of community events, but we also do some more targeted ones as well, which can be interesting. We regularly go to things like the Offshore Energy UK conferences and talk to them. We also go to this one, which is the Skipper Expo. If anybody's ever gone to that one, it has a slightly different vibe. It's really good, really useful for talking to the fishing industry and trying to get them on board with some of our projects around marine litter. However, not long after this photo was taken, the stall opposite us opened a free bar, which, yeah, it was quite an interesting event after that one. We get out and about on the coast and actually show people our amazing wildlife. We have fantastic, charismatic megafauna living in our city centres in this area. It's amazing what we have. So we go out there and try and show people. We're possibly at the moment best known for our work on marine litter, our Turning the Plastic Tide project. Getting out there with schools, going into school groups and really trying to sort of deal with some of our beaches. This is Cairnbolg. It's one of our 2 real hotspots in the area. And the reason we do this is because it really shows people can make a difference. So this is 9:30 in the morning. That's 12 o'clock. 4.5 tons later, mainly small material, industrial rags basically. So it's actually getting out there and, you know, seeing how much difference you can make. And strangely, the number one thing that we're told at the end of a cleanup is we have people come up to us who spent the day in all this muck, picking up rubbish, and they come up to us and say, "Thank you, that was fantastic." Really? Okay. Because how often in your job do you actually see, it was terrible, it's now good? Unfortunately, the tide then comes in, so we do have to keep going back to these places. And last year we set a shocking record. Our most successful or worst ever beach clean, I'm not sure which. One day, 25 tons from a beach in a day. Thankfully, we had some really good plant with us who could actually transport it up the bank at the back of this beach. But 25 tons that was only going to get broken down into smaller and smaller pieces and eventually become microplastics. So trying to get this dealt with has been very important. We've had some successes, I would say, partly through going in and talking to the fishing industry. These are oil filters from medium-sized vessels that could quite possibly be fishing boats. They're changed, as you would expect, in port. So how do we end up with them? So this was 57 in a kilometre of beach up at Cairnbolg. Over there we have the Showa 606 Blue Glove. We've picked up over 500 in a kilometre of beach. We're starting to see these going down because we have specifically targeted them. We do other things. We do YouTube films trying to sort of change behaviour as well. Just a tip for anybody who wants to see wildlife. If you point a camera at yourself and start talking about wildlife, for some strange reason it appears. This was me doing my Jamie Oliver bit, so showing how quickly and easily you can use a camp cooker to cook at the beach rather than having these useless beach barbecues, which are rubbish in every way possible. But you do this, you start talking to the camera, and what should turn up? The S27 pod. The film suddenly changed dramatically. So yeah, the S27 orcas turned up in Stonehaven Bay right next to me. Kids couldn't understand why I was screaming at them to get to me rather than keep away and be quiet. We also do Discover maps, which are trying to engage and interest the public. In terms of climate change, dispel some of the ideas people have. You know, how successful some of the things in the area are, but also explaining the things people are seeing on the coast. Going quickly on this one, I'm going to have to ask, when did Aberdeenshire have its first house powered by a wind turbine providing the electricity? 1880s. The hospital in Montrose had its lights powered by wind turbines going into batteries and lighting the hospital in the 1890s. We've been doing this here a while. Now going on to a bit more of the specifics and why we're doing this State of the Coast project. So there's some people that we need to try and get information to. We're looking at the moment soon hopefully within the next 2 or 3 years, of starting regional marine planning in the area. At the moment, things have been done on a national level. We're doing the National Marine Plan 2 consultations at the moment. If anybody would like to put some information in on that, please get in touch with me afterwards and I can point you in the right direction. But there's people that we need to get in touch with. This is based on a real person. Runs a family joinery business. In her spare time, she loves walking on the coast with her dogs, gardening and leading the second largest party in the local council. This came from a time a few years ago when I rang up one of the very, very senior councillors, and I was there with a sort of, is Councillor so-and-so there? Which aren't expecting the phone call to go through to, hello so-and-so, Heating Limited? Oh, so this is just something that you do in the spare time. These sort of elected officials could quite easily be expected to be very, very knowledgeable on social work, marine planning, and a wide range of other tasks. I have huge respect for anybody who can take on knowledge like that, but we need to get it to them in a good form. This is another one of those people that you probably come across. Very well respected. This is the council lead on agriculture and economic development. I had to put the pun in. From a farming background, very well respected in his field. And has now been given the fishing brief to go with farming because they're almost identical. And this is Bill Smith. He's a student looking for information on tourism in the area and some facts he can use when his dad comes up with absolute rubbish that they've seen on that meme from Landman that keeps going round, which we're up against all the time. The wind turbines will never pay for themselves in terms of the carbon that they use versus what you get back from them. You know, there's so much of rubbish out there and we've got to try and counteract it. So one of the first projects the partnership did was the original State of the Coast report. See if I'm doing for time. Which was done back in 2009. It was slightly unusual for state of reports in that it covered social, economy and environment, the 3 pillars of sustainable development. Covered roughly the same area, but was slightly complicated by a great discussion we always have, where is the coast? It's not that easy. We used quite a few indicators and we produced a really quite good document, I would say, 180 pages. But of course, with all these sort of State of the Coast reports, the big problem was we published it in 2009. Probably out of date the day it was published. However, I recently discovered that the Planning Department for Aberdeenshire had based quite a lot of their evidence for the coastal aspect recently on our 2009 report. I had the opportunity to see what was being done elsewhere, and I'll come back to this at the end as a little aside, but I managed to go out to the Balearic Islands, to their coastal partnership which does the State of the Coast report. And it is pretty, it's beautiful. I'm talking about the report, not the islands are quite nice. And just to give you an idea, this is the sort of work they're doing. They go for a great deal of detail in a relatively small number of topics. And they produce these like case books. They're very good, they're very expensive, but as I say, there's limited range of them. They've done great work. They've produced phone book, which obviously dates me, phone book type documents as well as a website. Just as an aside on the Balearic Partnership, they have a photographic competition where they get people to send in pictures and then they judge them and give out prizes. Their photographic competition has a bigger budget than EGCP, including Turning the Plastic Tide, Discover Maps and our work on State of the Coast. We'll come back to that at the end. Beautiful, but again, you can see it's going to take a long time, quite difficult to update, so you've got that dating factor. So we have been working on our State of the Coast report, trying to learn lessons from what's been done elsewhere. We've had an amazing team. We've done this on a budget, which when I said it, made this fella laugh out loud in terms of how little we've had. So yeah, our budget for this project has been effectively £20,000, half of that coming from ourselves. And we've produced a series of information sheets. So these are the jigsaw pieces. They're short and to the point, a few paragraphs, the useful sort of illustrations, maps, quite often from a document. I don't know if anybody's seen this NNP2, which is the Scottish Marine Plan Online. It's really good, but you need a lot of knowledge to start with to actually access it. We've done a really good section on climate change, which I'd like people to have a look at. And what we've tried to do in these documents as well is, while they provide the basics, we've then provided links to other information sheets so that you can make your own story. So you can go from one to the next. So this is the situation with species. It's been affected by this, which you can then go onto the information sheet for this. So you can make your own sort of route through it rather than giving you 180 pages on fish as one big document. We've also, again, covered the social aspect, which is really scary. You can see how the economy actually hits people. This is healthy life expectancy, and within short distances in this area you can have a healthy life expectancy which is 20-25 years different between one area and the next. Scarily, very scarily for me, some of the areas in this, some of the places, the wards in this area, the healthy life expectancy is younger than I am. This is healthy life expectancy rather than life expectancy. And you can actually see shocks to the area happening with some of the economic events that take place. And these things are all very much linked. The other things you'll find on our information sheets, very, very importantly, is when it was last updated. These have been done basically as a series of Excel spreadsheets, which are then put onto the site. The reason we do this is because you have the tables. We've got basically a list, a to-do list going forward. When the new data comes out, we can then add a column. We can then quickly put it onto the information sheets to the state of the coast, and we can then update the date. So effectively you can see how long this has been relevant, and hopefully instead of having that big tome that goes out of date straight away, we can just slowly keep updating this and trying to keep it there. And also very important, every single sheet has a contact form on it. If we've made a mistake, please let us know. If you've got better information, please let us know. I'm dyslexic. If I've got a spelling mistake, well actually no, if there isn't a spelling mistake, let me know, because that's amazing. Somebody's doing it. The ones I have made, please point out. We're not saying that we'll change everything, because we will include information from both the conservation groups, the industry groups, and then let people make their own decisions rather than saying this is the answer. So where we're going from here, we're launching it on the 25th of March. This is an event in Aberdeen. If people want to give me their email address, I'll send them the link. It'd be great if you could come along. As well as the launch, this is version 1, where we want to find out what people want in terms of, do we improve the quality? So go more in depth on subjects, do we increase the scope? Do we increase the area? If there are other areas which would like one of these, I reckon it could probably done for about 25% of the work that we put in, because a lot of it could be replicated and you could have a much bigger area covered. And also, we need to promote it. There's no point doing this if nobody's going to use it. So we need to try and get it into everywhere that we can do. We'll be looking at whether we need to actually produce some hard documents, whether we can link this with our work with schools. So we'll be in TechFest and things like this. So this is where we're going. I've got a minute, so one last aside. The Balearics taught me quite an interesting lesson. You see, their budget is basically the same as ours, but with a zero added to the end of it. And I was trying to work out why this is, and I came up with a conclusion. The person that runs this is extremely knowledgeable, very good at delivery, but there's a third element. Can I suggest that we need to possibly look at some charisma training? The guy, if you imagine an extremely knowledgeable Julio Iglesias, just has that sort of ability to talk the right thing, but also you can just imagine people sort of just signing checks and not quite understanding how they've done it. So as I say, my last takeaway is that if we can work on our sort of charisma, just persuading people better, you know, communicating individually, that's the last slightly odd aside from me. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ian.
Yeah, that's me. So I'm here to talk about seagrass and also a bit about Moray Ocean Community and how we set that up. So this is Moray Ocean Community. This was started in a wine bar in Inverness, as all good community groups are. And basically it was from a frustration that nobody was really doing anything in the Moray Firth that wasn't about dolphins and the more interesting things that I think. And what our thing about it is actually really to be passionate about the science and to engage with people wherever we can, whoever they are, and trying to get them out into the water and doing things. One of the things that I was really passionate about was seagrass. Everybody's heard about seagrass now, a really important species for all sorts of things. But when you looked at where the projects were being undertaken, it was all down in the central belt or on the west coast of Scotland. So I was like, well, actually, is there anything in, you know, the Moray Firth that needs looking at? So what is a seagrass? A seagrass is our only aquatic angiosperm. So basically, it's a proper flowering plant. It's got rhizomes in the bottom there that are kind of modified shoot structures that are in the sediment, provide storage. We've got roots as well. So roots kind of help bed into the sediment, but they also help transport oxygen down into the sediments. Leaves and shoots, like any plant does, and we have seeds. I mean, the seeds are actually really amazing structures. There's some communities over in Central America used to collect the seed and grind them up to make flour out of, so you could actually have seagrass bread. Recognising seagrass, so seagrass is actually, because everybody's heard about it, but not many people have actually seen it, can easily be confused with other stuff like salt marsh and algae. That there is salt marsh. That's an algae. Algae can, particularly at this time of year when the seagrass isn't growing very well, you know, you get all sorts of green algal species kind of growing about kind of on the on the mud flats where it tends to be. You've obviously got your more standard kind of types of algae there. And again, I spend a lot of interesting times wondering about mud flats. But then basically everything that's green isn't seagrass, and you have to be thinking about it a bit more. Common eelgrass, otherwise known as Zostera marina, is the one that everybody is going on about in terms of replanting, in terms of biodiversity, in terms of carbon. Common eelgrass will grow both intertidally, which is over there. That is probably Longman Bay, so a really muddy kind of area. That is exactly the same species that grows under the water. That is a subtidal seagrass picture in Birkhead Bay. We have found a really important patch of subtidal seagrass in Birkhead Bay. We're the first people to find that since, I think there was a herbarium record in 1860, but we've found that again. And it's the same. And I think as a botanist, it's really exciting that you've got the same species that grows on really muddy intertidal areas as grows in the subtidal. You'll find those plants all year round. Intertidally, they'll only be kind of they die out probably November time, and they'll start growing again probably April time. So if you go out now, you won't really see the common eelgrass. This is a really cool picture that I found the other day, that when I went out snorkeling, this is the west coast, but you can see there you have seagrass, you have moa, you have other things. So it's a really, really important and cool habitat. The other species that we have is dwarf eelgrass. This tends to be in kind of muddier areas, as you can see here. That's a lot of eelgrass there. That's us actually on a slightly better site, kind of in the beauty Firth, going out and did some survey, and you can see there actually the difference, which is why it's called dwarf rather than the common. It's less robust, it's thinner, and and that kind of thing. The other thing that we have is we have something called widgeon grass. Hardcore botanists will say that it's not actually a true seagrass, but it basically does the same thing. It grows in the same places, and that's Ruppia maritima. That's that one there, called widgeon grass because widgeon eat it a lot. And I think that's been one of the problems about seagrass. Seagrass has always been seen up until now about something that feeds birds. People are much more interested in birds than they are in seagrass. So as a botanist, I'm quite chuffed that actually people are actually looking at the habitat rather than just the birds. So why is it important? I think one of the things to really think about is if you don't have the seagrass, you've got very flat, uniform substrates there. So what the seagrass does is it adds a bit of 3D structure into an otherwise uniform habitat. If we go back to the picture that I had of Birkhead Bay and the seagrass there, if you didn't have that seagrass there, you just have a sandy bottom, and you can all imagine what snorkeling like across that sandy bottom is. You see some crabs and things like that, and that's all you'll see. But if you have that 3D structure there, you have all these benefits. You have the biodiversity benefits. You have things living in there. You have many more crabs in there. You have eggs around the seagrass. You get sea slugs. You get anemones. In the other picture, you had marl growing in there. So you have all these kind of, and it's a really good nursery habitat. So when seagrass was first being kind of lost in the 1930s, why people were interested was because of the impact on the commercial fisheries. So even though we're talking about biodiversity, there's also this commercial fishery aspect. If we have better nursery stocks, people can fish more, than helps local communities. Climate change. Everybody wants to talk about carbon. I personally think there's still a lot more research that needs to be done in terms of actually the benefits from seagrass on carbon. What can be much more important is the trapping of the sediments within that bed, because you lock in carbon there. Trapping the sediments is also good because then that helps with the whole climate adaptation, better resilient habitats, particularly when you've got seagrass, and then which is generally before all the salt marsh, so that's good. Water quality, again, because it's a growing plant, they absorb nutrients, they absorb pathogens, they also oxygenate the water. I grow seagrass at home. It's brilliant to see when it's sunny because you can see all of those bubbles coming up. So yeah, biodiversity, I've already spoken about this. You can see these pictures here that are both taken over on the west coast. Amazing scallops, amazing marl. Foraging for other species, I would love if we could reintroduce manatees. I think that'd be a great idea, but I'm sure Nature Squad would have an issue with that. And there's an amazing amount of species that actually live on it. You can see there the eggs on it. Climate change, yeah, you know, as soon as you Google seagrass and climate change, all these things come up that it stores 18% of oceanic carbon and all of this stuff. But actually, is that the most important thing? I personally much prefer the biodiversity side of it. I much prefer having diverse habitats in there. If it sequesters carbon, then absolutely great. I think we have to look back at what the intertidal stuff does, but it does protect coastlines where you've got, and I think we need to be much better about rather looking at salt marsh, seagrass and oysters, for example, separately. They're all part of the same system and they all help each other out. So this is when I got, it's about 2-3 years ago when I really started getting kind of interested in seagrass, primarily because I spoke to Danny Renton from Sea Wilding and he inspired me on this. This is the NBN map, so National Biodiversity Network, and I spent probably late 2022 walking around the Beaulieu and the Inverness Firth looking at those spots and seeing if those spots were still there. I also then looked at the National Marine Plan Interactive, which has got, I don't know how to put this politely, but bugger all on it. So that kind of made me a bit cross about this whole thing. So I started off with just kind of wondering about the Firth on my own, and then managed to do some more work supported by kind of Mossy Earth. And this is the mapping that we've done. I think I've walked about 450 odd hectares of mudflat over the past 2 or 3 years. And we've mapped all of that, and all of that mapping has been sent across to kind of NatureScot. So we've gone from these green spots to actually proper mapped areas. And what's really interesting, what's happened, this is Inverness, this is Merkinch Local Nature Reserve. Earlier, well, late last year, we had NatureScot come directly to Moray Ocean Community and ask them for their seagrass records for casework, because I think there's a port expansion here. So now, and I think that was really nice to see that the work that we had done was actually leading into actually casework. And I think that's really, really important with that. Citizen science, although I like to call it science, I think calling it citizen science actually denigrates the work that people do. Seagrass Spotter is brilliant. This is an app, and all those red dots. Sadly, most of those are mine, but there's other people. I have convinced some other people to go out and do it. But a really, really good app, and that really kind of that's a brilliant thing to do. I've done a lot of engagement with people of all sorts. This is the local Merkinch Nature Reserve. These are people who have never been out onto the mudflats and just were actually really interested in it. I've done a lot of snorkeling and free diving over in Birkhead Bay to find that. That's been really good. That's been a brilliant project because we have Birkhead Sub-Aqua Club who are really engaged with that. We've had other groups out. And I think that, the seagrass thing for me has really got a lot of people from all sorts of backgrounds actually involved in logging it. And the way that you can do it through Seagrass Spotter is actually really good because it's very quick and easy to do. And if anybody does go out and do it, washed up seagrass records are absolutely brilliant because it allows us to kind of find out where it is. What I should do actually is going back to here, I think, making it more relevant. So we, even though I've gone and done all this mapping in the Inverness, Beaulieu and around here, the Birkhead Bay, it needs mapping. I mean, that is a massively important thing, but we've got these dots kind of further out east. I don't know, it'd be really interesting to see if those dots actually mean that we have seagrass here. We found the subtidal seagrass in Birkhead Bay. That doesn't mean that it's only in Birkhead Bay. Are there other areas along this coast where there is potential to actually find seagrass, which is actually really important. I did have a look at the Climate Adaptation Route Map, and I thought it was really good actually. So, tick some boxes here. We have regenerating nature, because obviously that's what we're doing. We're growing skills and employment. So, these are some volunteers out, again, learning survey skills. This is my seagrass tank at home in the back garden. And I'm learning to grow seagrass. I was very chuffed about these seagrass seedlings. And also people may have seen that the SMHU announcement for projects regenerating seagrass, I think because of the groundwork that the Moray Ocean community have done, Mossy Earth now have a 3-year project to restore 4.2 hectares of seagrass in the Beaulieu Firth area. So it does show that with the right partners, by collecting information, you can really then kind of spur things on to create. I think they're creating another 2 full-time jobs and another 2 seasonal staff. So it does show that great things can come from small beginnings. This is my Ocean community. We're on Facebook. Catherine's really good about that. Instagram, Twitter, and email. we don't only do seagrass. Seagrass is just my thing. We do invasive species surveys, like slipper limpet surveys have been really good. That's being led by Terry, and that again is if Nature Squad, we do beach cleans. Some people are still insisting on going and watching dolphins, so I allow them to do that as long as they do some seagrass surveys for me. But anything else that's there, it's very much driven by what people who are kind of linked to my Asian community want to do. That's what we do. So that is me.
Ten minutes of questions before coffee. So if anyone's got any questions for any of the speakers from this morning, please put your hands up and Abby will run and bring you a microphone. And if the speakers could come through here to the front, that'd be good. And if you could stand round about here.
I'll stand.
Then you'll be in the right place for the microphone. So we've got a question over there.
It is working now. Thank you very much. And I would like to speak and have a question about the whole route map. Fantastic. And thank you for your brilliant explanation. I'm just completely, really on board of everything. I'm a councillor for Aberdeenshire.
And she wasn't.
I was just going to ask, in the community climate adaptation route map, right? I didn't notice there was any kind of inclusion of local businesses, and I wondered if that would be well worth to include, actually. That's just my question.
Give us the money. Show us the money. No, I think it's true. Adaptation, you need to, when you talk about community, is not, everybody is part of a community, aren't they? So I'm part of a community, you're part of a community, we're all part of a community. Whether we're business owners, we're councillors, we're fishermen, whatever, we're part of a community. So that when you start talking to your community, you're not just talking to people as individuals or in a voluntary way, you're also talking to them as professionals in whatever way that they have as well, and with all their contacts. So whereas it might not be specifically in there, and you're right, I don't think it actually is, because it's more based around community voluntary action as opposed to anything else. Really, when you're going out to do this sort of thing, you need to be talking to everybody, the right people. So that could be the landowners, that could be the businesses, and actually it has to be, because a lot of times, well, you know yourself, when we have like huge storms coming, flooding, who's the first people out to help? It's usually the farmers dragging some bales or this or that, or other people. Everybody, starts to curry around and help. So yes, I think that should be more explicit within that. But definitely, it's a good point to make, that really we need everybody within the community to be involved.
So there was some question about funding was brought up, and how running on teeny-weeny budgets is quite common amongst community groups and climate groups. Do you think that we should all be working together a bit more to lobby the Scottish Government to actually fund all these projects properly? Because there seems to be a lot of support when it comes to the oil industry, as an example, where they're offering a vision of the future, and then the Scottish Government says, here is £20 million or whatever to do your consultations and investigations into your vision of the future. But what we're all doing here is presenting something that is actually scientifically backed and viable and good for the planet. So surely it's an open shut business case there. So, what work do you think we need to do to actually secure the necessary funding to do it properly at the scale and the speed that really needs to be done?
Right. Who's brave enough to answer this one?
I'll start. Yeah, so funding for a community group is really, really difficult to do in terms of if you're trying to do something good, which is one of the reasons why Mossy Earth, for example, we were really lucky to have that collaboration with them, and they're leading on it because of the way that the funding system works. If anybody's dealt with the NRF, so the Nature Recovery Fund, it's an absolute nightmare. And I don't think the Scottish Government realise that most of these groups are led by volunteers, and you just can't upskill or kind of up resource enough, because no one pays you enough to do that. The funding timescales are too short. You can't do these things quickly. You need 5 to 10 years, but no one's willing to actually do that. So, I get massively frustrated with the Scottish Government saying they're going to meet all these targets, but they're not helping community groups to do it. And if you actually try to do something, you get massive issues with Nature Scot, with the Marine Directorate, with Crown Estate Scotland, with all of the others who just throw regulation at you. So actually trying to do it is really difficult, and to be honest, most of the time really soul destroying. So you've got to be quite thick-skinned to actually get anything done, but when you do get it done, it's great.
Yeah, it is a huge issue, funding, and I won't lie, it's the one that we have, and it's one that we know that the community groups have, because we're there with you, working with you to try and get the funding. NESCAN can help groups to apply for funding. The trouble is, it's like, I think at the moment it's 3 times as many applications they are actually, and a lot of funds getting the money. So there is an issue with that. The issue, though, is there's not a huge amount of budget going around at the moment in our public sector. We know the councils are in a huge spending. So it's, where is it going to come from? You are right, though. There does seem to be this kind of disparity with huge companies that seem to be able to do it themselves, getting public money. I think the only way that we can do it is lobby, and SCVO are doing that on behalf, and we all are working to do that lobby every single time we go anywhere. Believe you me, it's something constantly being drummed on about, and it's something that the hubs are trying to do something about too. We, as I say, we have a small seed fund that's very easy to get, because we don't want to put the barriers in that you get other places. But it's an environment that we're in, so that's why we say, let's try and get. We've got a huge opportunity here in the northeast of Scotland with all the energy infrastructure coming in, the wind farms, etc. That can lead to shared ownership, community benefits, and also opportunities for community ownership of energy supplies or district heating, etc. It's about looking at your assets and seeing if you can income generate yourself, because if you can get your own independent income as a community, then you could choose what it's spent on. And there's a huge amount of research that shows like about 34 times the amount of money goes into community from their own wind farm, for instance, than if a commercial wind farm came in. With that money, then you see that either kind of development trust or whatever is running those kind of assets, then gets money to put into different projects, whether that's Seagrass or a plastic tide or anything like that. They choose where that goes, and you can see a real community wealth benefit coming out there at the moment. And I know that that's something that Aberdeenshire Council are working on as well, as a community wealth building and in building that up, because we cannot just rely on getting handouts, because they don't come, and if they do come, they're sporadic. So I think that's where we need to be doing. We need to be lobbying, but we also need to be then thinking about how to become more self-sufficient.
So you got 1 minute, Ian. Or do you want?
Was that an hour? We're actually, Charterhouse rules, we're actually doing relatively well at the moment financially compared to nearly all of our history. The way we've been doing it, and this is going to have to sound really arrogant here, we've been really trying to deliver stuff, and actually delivering stuff before we get the money for it necessarily, and then shouting about it and trying to show people what we're achieving and why they should then give us more money to do more achieving. State of the Coast we've done on very little money. There's so many arms and legs I can see that can come from this, where we can really develop it into something fantastic. But instead of going there and saying, this is the concept that we're looking at, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to start off with, and we're then going to develop it, we've kind of had to go, right, here's a little bit, let's get something done with a brilliant team of students that we have been paying. We haven't just been making them work on it, we have been paying them, but trying to deliver something so we can actually say, this is what we've done with nothing, just imagine what we can do with something. So I think you have to sort of have that mindset. We do a lot with companies. Most of our money now comes from companies through Turning the Plastic Tide. So actually going out there and showing them that you're doing stuff. Things like Turning the Plastic Tide for quite a lot of the companies around here really are rounding errors. It's we're not looking for much, but if you can get people engaged and show them the picture of the dirty beach and the clean beach, you know, that you kind of have to sort of go out there and then pull it back. But yeah, that's my look at it. But as I say, just in case anybody's interested in throwing money at us, we're not doing that well.
You can always do better.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for our speakers for this morning. We have a 15-minute coffee break, so don't loiter too long. Come back. We've got some more talks after coffee. Thanks very much.